Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep today into one of the most recognizable places in the world, really, but it's also one of the most complex.
It really is. We're talking about Harajuku and Omotesando.
Exactly, and they're right next to each other, but they feel like completely different planets.
That's the perfect way to put it. I mean, for anyone who's been there, you know the feeling. You step into Takashita Dori in Harajuku, and it's just this burst of neon chaos.
Pure energy, crepes, pop idol shops, just a crush of people and sound. It's all about what's new right now.
And then you walk maybe 2 minutes, and you're on Omotesando.
And it's quiet. It's this wide, serene, almost European boulevard with these huge Zelkova trees. You've got flagship luxury brands, stunning architecture. It feels permanent.
It feels intentional. And, people always lump them together, just call the whole area Harajuku. But the history, the culture, the money, they are worlds apart.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to trace how this one small piece of Tokyo went through so many transformations.
Multiple times. I mean, we're going to see how it evolved from a poor rural village into this global center where, like you said, chaos meets high couture.
We're peeling back the layers, right? Going back through the feudal age, the post-war American occupation, and then that explosion of youth culture that really defined it.
And you have to understand, it's not one place. It's a collection of neighborhoods fighting for the same space.
Yeah.
You've got the kawaii culture, the high fashion mode of Omotesando, and then the hidden alleyways of Ura Harajuku.
It's a fascinating story of how they all came to be. So let's start at the very beginning. Before the fashion, before the tourists, what was this place?
It seems like the name itself, Harajuku, is a huge clue to what it used to be, long before Tokyo was even called Edo.
It absolutely is. The name is ancient. Harajuku is written with the character shuku.
Which means inn or lodging, right?
Right, exactly. So that tells us right away that this was a shukubamachi, which is basically a post town. Think of it like a service station or a rest stop on an ancient highway.
A highway for who? The Kamakura Kaido. This was a critical route in feudal Japan, connecting the political center of Kamakura with the rest of the country. So Harajuku was a necessary stopping point.
So it was strategic from the very beginning, not just some random village.
Right. And its military importance goes back even further. There's this amazing legend that ties the area to Minamoto no Yoshi, a very famous samurai general.
Okay, I know that name.
The story goes that he gathered his entire army right here before heading off to the later 3-year war. We're talking the late 11th century.
That's incredible. An army assembling where people now line up for bubble tea. Is there any trace of that left?
There is. It's actually preserved in a place name. There's a slope in Jingumai Tucom called
Cisorezaka,
which literally translates to assembly slope. So the memory of those warriors is literally baked into the landscape.
That's the kind of hidden history we love. So, okay, let's fast forward a bit. The Edo period. Tokugawa is in charge. Was Harajuku a booming suburb of the new capital?
You'd think so, but no. It was actually the complete opposite. The historical records are really clear on this. Harajuku village was rural, and the land was, well, it was terrible.
Really? Why?
The soil was just very poor, very unproductive. It was on a plateau, so farming was a real struggle. Yeah. They had the Shibuya River nearby, which they called the Onden River back then.
So they had water.
They had water, and they used it. They built water wheels to mill rice and flour, trying to make up for what they couldn't grow. But the records show they were constantly struggling.
How so?
There are all these accounts of them holding amagoi.
Rain prayers.
Yes, very serious rain-praying ceremonies. These weren't just local rituals. They would organize these long, difficult pilgrimages to major shrines, sometimes really far away, just to pray for enough rain for a decent harvest.
Wow. It paints a picture of a really tough, humble existence.
A very hard-scrabble life.
Yeah.
Right on the edge of what was becoming the biggest city in the world.
Which makes its future even more unbelievable. But let's stick with the military theme, because that strategic location comes back into play in a huge way.
It does. This connects to one of the most famous events in samurai history, the Hanneji incident.
The assassination of Oda Nobunaga.
Right. And after that, Tokugawa Ieyasu is stranded, vulnerable. He has to make a secret high-speed escape back to his home province. This is the legendary Iga crossing.
And it was pulled off by Iga warriors, basically ninja.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for their loyalty, for saving his life, Ieyasu gave them a huge reward in 1590. He gave them the villages of Harajuku and the neighboring Onden.
He gave them the land.
The whole area. He stationed the Igashu barracks there. It was a brilliant strategic move. He put his most trusted, most elite covert warriors there to act as a defensive outpost for his new capital, Edo.
So the area was literally shaped by spies. How did that change the place?
It layered a military logic on top of the farming village. The Iga warriors would have taken the best land, the high ground. That area, the plateau, was original Harajuku, what's now Jingumai 1-3 Kome.
And the farmers?
They were on the lower lands near the river in Ondin. You can still see that geography today. And the area right around Harajuku Station and Takeshita-dori, that was called Takeshita-cho.
Which means?
Town under the bamboo. It was probably the lowest, marshiest part of the area. All these old names, Harajuku, Ondin, Takeshita-cho, they all got mashed together into the modern name Jingume in 1965.
It's just wild. From a home for Iga warriors to a global fashion hub, it really sets the stage for the next big shift. From defense to, well, imperial grandeur.
Okay, so we're jumping forward to the Meiji era. Japan is modernizing at an incredible speed, and the whole Harajuku area gets a complete makeover. It goes from a functional village to something monumental.
This is the birth of Omotesando. And you have to understand, Omotesando is completely artificial. It wasn't an old road that got widened. It was designed and built from scratch.
For a specific purpose.
For one single purpose, to be the grand approach to the Meiji Jingu Shrine. The name literally means front approach path. It was built in 1919, a year before the shrine was officially founded. And when you're there, it feels so different from the rest of Tokyo. It's so wide, so straight. It doesn't have that organic, chaotic feel.
That's the imperial design. It's about 1.1 kilometers long and a massive 36 meters wide. But what's really fascinating is that the original plan was different.
Oh.
Yeah, the main approach was supposed to lead into the outer garden. But they changed the plan because of, well, spiritual concerns.
You mean like Feng Shui?
Exactly, a type of Feng Shui. The original spot for the main gate was facing the Kimon, the so-called Demon's Gate, to the northeast, an unlucky direction.
So they moved the entire entrance?
They did. They shifted it to the southwest, which meant they had to create this whole new grand avenue to lead to it. And that is the Omotesando we have today.
That's an amazing butterfly effect. A decision based on ancient superstition creates one of the world's most modern fashion streets. And the trees, the iconic Kiyaki trees, they were part of that plan from day one.
Absolutely central to their vision. They planted 200 young Zelkova trees in 1921. But this is the part that really shows you the incredible foresight of the planners back then.
What's that?
We're in the Taisho era, the 1920s. Tokyo's electrifying, wires going up everywhere. It's chaotic.
Right.
Yet on Omotesando, they decided from the very beginning to put all the electric and utility lines underground.
Wait, in the 1920s, that must have been incredibly expensive and difficult.
It was extraordinary. And they did it for one reason. So the Kiyaki trees could grow to their full height without ever being butchered to make way for overhead cables. They were designing for 100 years in the future.
That's staggering. That's not just building a road, that's building a legacy.
And the planning goes even deeper. There's a celestial secret built into it.
Okay, now I'm hooked.
The alignment of the street isn't random. It was engineered so that if you stand at the main crossing on the morning of the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, the sun rises precisely down the center line of the road, pointing directly toward Meiji Jingu.
No way! It's a giant solar calendar.
It turns the whole avenue into a sacred axis, connecting the city to the spirit of the emperor. It's all about order, precision, and imperial power. It was designed to make you feel small and reverent.
Which is the polar opposite of the feeling you get in Harajuku today. That solemn beginning makes the next chapter, the arrival of the Americans, even more jarring.
Right. And that transition begins with total destruction. The area was hit hard in the 1945 air raids, and into that void steps the U.S. Air Force.
This is the era of Washington Heights.
Exactly. The U.S. military builds this huge housing and barracks complex called Washington Heights on the old Yoyogi parade ground. It's basically a small American town dropped right into the middle of post-war Tokyo.
And that must have created its own little economy.
Instantly. You have all these American families who want American goods, American services. So Omotesando, which had been this quiet gravel road for shrine visits, it gets paved, gets widened for military traffic.
And Japanese businesses see an opportunity.
They do. Shops start popping up specifically to cater to the Americans living in Washington Heights.
And this is where some famous names get their start, right? Like Kittyland.
Kittyland is the perfect example. It opened in 1950. But it wasn't the toy store we know today. It was more like a general store and a bookstore.
For the Americans.
Specifically for them, it sold imported books and goods that the families in Washington Heights couldn't get anywhere else in Japan. Its entire existence was a direct result of the occupation.
So if I were to walk down Omotesando in, say, 1955, what would it have felt like?
So different. Very quiet, very calm. You'd see American families strolling. It had a very Western, almost suburban feel. It was not a destination for Japanese youth at all. Not yet.
But the foundations for its future as a luxury hub were being laid, literally, with new buildings.
Yes, this is the first mansion boom of the 1960s. And in Japan, a mansion means a high-end condominium or apartment building.
And these were a new kind of living for Tokyo?
Completely. They were advertising things like central air conditioning, which was unheard of. We're talking about iconic buildings like the Harajuku apartments, Harajuku Central Apartment, and especially the Coupe Olympia.
What was so special about Coupe Olympia?
It was marketed as this peak of modern, luxurious living. It had concierge services, hotel-like comforts. These buildings completely changed the image of the area, positioning it as elite, fashionable, and international.
So by the late 60s, you have this quiet, modern, wealthy neighborhood. It's like a perfectly set stage.
A stage just waiting for a cultural earthquake. And that earthquake came from a police crackdown just a few miles away in Shinjuku.
Okay, this is where it really kicks off. The whole story pivots, and the energy shifts from the quiet elegance of Omotesando to the chaotic birth of youth culture in Harajuku.
And the catalyst is the Shinjuku West Exit folk guerrilla incident. It sounds dramatic, and it was.
Set the scene for us. What was happening in Shinjuku in 1969?
Shinjuku was the absolute heart of the counterculture. Student protests, anti-war movements, radical art, and folk music. The West Exit Plaza was where young people gathered to sing protest songs.
A sort of Japanese Woodstock, but in a train station?
Kind of. And the authorities hated it. So in '69, the police moved in and forcibly broke up the gatherings. But the crucial thing they did was they legally reclassified the plaza.
Reclassified it.
They declared it a passageway, not a public square, which meant public assembly was now illegal there, permanently.
So they literally just erased the space for the counterculture to exist. All that energy, all those young people, where did they go?
That's the key question. It triggered what we call the Great Migration. The political anti-establishment energy of Shinjuku was homeless, so it migrated. It moved towards Shibuya and its neighbors.
Towards Harajuku.
Exactly. Harajuku was the perfect new home. It was close, it looked modern and cool because of those new mansions, and it was a commercial blank slate.
So the political energy morphed into consumer energy.
Precisely. The first little boutiques had already started to appear, like Mademoiselle Nana in '66. But then you get this new tension. You get the Harajuku tribe.
The Harajuku-zoku, who were they?
Rich kids, basically.
Yeah.
They'd show up late at night in their cars, cruising, playing loud music near where La Forêt is today. And the wealthy residents of the new mansions were furious.
Huh. The classic town and gown conflict?
Totally. They even formed a society to protect the living environment in 1966 to try and stop the noise.
But you can't stop the tide, and the real flood came from fashion magazines.
Oh, the power of those magazines was immense. The launch of an Anne in 1970 and Non-No in 1971, that was it. That was the game changer. They didn't just report on Harajuku, they created Harajuku as a destination.
And that created the Anon tribe.
Yes, the Anonzoku. Thousands of young women flocking to the area, literally clutching these magazines like maps, searching for the shops and cafes they'd seen in the pages. They were the foot soldiers of the fashion revolution.
And the area had to adapt. The infrastructure grew to meet the demand.
Right. Meiji Jingumae Station opens in '72, making it super easy to get to. And then in 1978, La Forêt Harajuku opens. That big, modern fashion building cemented Harajuku as a permanent hub.
But the real creative soul of the 70s wasn't in a big complex. It was in one of those apartment buildings.
The Harajuku Central Apartment. It became this accidental creative incubator. Designers, photographers, writers, artists, they all gravitated there. And the cafe on the ground floor, Leon, became legendary.
Who was hanging out at Leon?
Everyone. It was this incredible mix. You'd have famous actors and directors sitting next to artists, models, even infamous biker gangs like the Cools. It was the place to be. The absolute nexus of 70s career.
And it was the launch pad for entire fashion movements.
The literal birthplace of what became Lolita fashion. A designer named Hitomi Okawa started her brand Milk in a tiny shop inside that building in 1970. It all started there in that one creative crucible. So by the time we hit the 1980s, the area is really split into two distinct identities. It's a formal segregation of style.
You have Omotesando, which doubles down on being the home of high fashion or mode.
Yes, this was the era of the big Japanese designers, the DC brand boom. Think Comme des Garçons, Yohji Yamamoto. And it attracted a very specific kind of customer.
The Karasuzoku.
The Crow tribe. Young people dressed head to toe in sophisticated expensive and almost always black designer clothes. It was minimalist, it was intellectual, it was cool. Omotesando was now directly competing with Ginza for the luxury market.
And then, just a block away, you have the complete opposite happening on Takeshita-dori.
Total chaos. Takeshita-dori becomes the home for cheap, fast, and loud youth fashion. In the early 80s, it's all about the Takenoko-zoku.
With the bamboo shoot tribe, what was their look?
Super colorful, layered, flamboyant outfits, lots of DIY. And they were famous for these spontaneous, synchronized dance routines in the street.
That sounds amazing.
It was a spectacle.
Yeah.
And then after them came the talent shops, selling merchandise for pop idols, which really targeted junior high and high school girls. It was all about accessibility and trends.
And none of this would have been possible without the Hokoten.
The Hokoten was everything, the pedestrian paradise. From 1977, every Sunday, they closed the main street to traffic.
And it just became this huge public stage.
Massive. At its peak, you'd get 100,000 people there on a Sunday. It's where the rockabilly dancers, the rock and roller tribe, got their start. It's where countless bands launched their careers. It was pure, spontaneous creativity.
But it couldn't last forever.
It couldn't. It was shut down on August 31st, 1998. And it was a huge blow to the culture.
Why did they end it?
It just became a victim of its own success. The traffic jams, the insane crowds, the garbage, the city and the local residents decided it was just too chaotic to manage.
So order won out over chaos.
As it often does. And as the main stage of Hokoten closed, a new, quieter scene was emerging in the back alleys.
Ura Harajuku.
Behind Harajuku, the back streets of Jingumai 3 and 4. This was the birth of Japanese streetwear as we know it.
Yeah.
Brands like a bathing ape. Good enough. They started in these tiny hidden shops.
So it was deliberately anti-mainstream.
Completely. It was about being in the know. You had to find the shops. It was all about exclusivity and limited editions. It was the cool antidote to the mass market trends on Takeshita-dori.
And while all this is happening, the central idea of Harajuku is getting boiled down into one single globally marketable concept.
Kawaii. Cuteness. This really takes off in the 90s. You can pinpoint it to a guy named Sebastian Masuda opening his shop, 6% Okidoki, in 95 with the idea of sensational kawaii.
And that aesthetic just exploded.
It did. It led to styles like Shinor and then Almojike, which was a style celebrated in magazines like Fruits. This was extreme, personalized DIY fashion. And eventually it was packaged and exported to the world as Harajuku kawaii culture.
And finally, the physical landscape starts to change again in the 2000s in a way that feels very permanent.
Huge changes. The old iconic Dojunkai Ayama apartments from the 1920s were torn down.
And replaced with the Omotesando Hills.
A massive high-end commercial complex. And then the Harajuku apartments, that creative hub from the 60s. It was replaced with Harajuku in 2020.
Right.
You see the pattern. Small, adaptable spaces being replaced by huge, curated corporate ones.
And the culture shifts from just fashion to food trends.
Yes, Harajuku becomes the place where gourmet popcorn, then pancakes, then tapioca milk tea have their big moment in Japan. It's still a trend incubator, but the nature of the trends is changing.
Okay, let's go back to Omotesando itself for a minute. Not the shops, but the street. The actual physical space is so unique.
The topography is a huge part of its character. It's not flat. It starts high up near Aoyamadori, about 35 meters above sea level.
Right.
And then it slopes down, down, down into a valley. The bottom of that valley is where it crosses Meiji-dori and Cat Street, which is the path of the old Shibuya River.
So that big intersection is literally in a river valley.
Yeah. It is. It's only about 20 meters above sea level there. Then it rises back up toward Harajuku Station. That's why walking it feels so distinct. It required serious engineering back in 1919, with retaining walls and everything.
And the trees, we know they were almost all destroyed in the war. What's the story of the survivors? It's incredible that any are left.
It's a beautiful story of resilience. Most of the 163 trees you see today were replanted around 1950, but 11 of the original trees survived the firebombing.
11. Wow. Do we know which ones they are?
Yes. They're mostly located in the section right in front of Omotesando Hills. Those 11 trees are over 90 years old. They are the living connection to the original Imperial Avenue.
That's amazing. What a symbol.
It really is. That's why the whole avenue was designated a Civil Engineering Heritage Site in 2020. It's a living monument.
Okay, let's talk about something more modern. The Christmas lights. Everyone loves them, but they have a surprisingly dramatic history.
They do. The illuminations started in 1991 and were a huge hit, but they were canceled completely in 1998.
Canceled? But why? It's such a huge draw.
Because of the chaos. The success was the problem. It created such insane traffic jams and pedestrian crowds and so much trash that the local community said, it's not worth it.
So the residents pushed back against the commercial spectacle.
They did. The lights only came back in a much smaller form for years before the full-scale event was cautiously brought back in 2009 with much better crowd control.
And there's a great story about those lights in another city, right?
It's a wonderful story. After the 2011 tsunami, the city of Sendai lost 60,000 of its own LED bulbs for its famous illumination event. The warehouse was destroyed.
Oh, that's devastating.
And the Omotesando Illumination Association immediately lent them replacement bulbs. It was this fantastic moment of solidarity between cities.
I love that. And finally, just to be clear, Omotesando is only one part of a bigger road.
That's right. If you keep going past Ayamadori, the street becomes Miyukidori.
Which means Imperial Visit Street.
Yep. The story is it was designed so the emperor had a direct route back to the imperial palace after visiting Meiji Jingu.
So this ultra-modern fashion street is bookended by these imperial ceremonial roads.
Perfectly. And if you go the other way, past Harajuku Station, it becomes part of Inokashira-dori, which was built after the Americans gave back Washington Heights in 1964. The whole road tells the story of the area. Hashtag tag tag outro.
What a story. We've gone from a poor farming village praying for rain to an outpost for ego warriors to a slice of post-war America, and finally into these two clashing cultural engines.
One driving kawaii pop culture and the other driving high fashion mode. It's such a perfect example of how quickly a city can reinvent itself.
Based on geopolitics, local politics, even just one building.
Right, like the creative explosion at the Harajuku Central Apartment.
Yeah.
And even though it's all called Jingume now, those two identities are still so fiercely independent.
You can feel it. You walk one block and it's a completely different world, from a flagship luxury store to a tiny hidden streetwear shop.
The friction is still there. That's what makes it so exciting.
So after tracing all this history, this constant cycle of change and reinvention, what does it all mean for the future of Harajuku?
Well, here's the thought I want to leave everyone with. Harajuku's creative energy has always thrived in temporary, low-cost, transient spaces. Think about the Hokoten, the little back alley shops. That's where the magic happens.
In the cheap, unstable places.
Exactly. So the question is, what happens now? With the rise of these huge, permanent corporate commercial complexes like Omotesando Hills and with Harajuku, does that change the fundamental character of the place?
Does it kill the spontaneity?
Does it transform Harajuku from a cradle of messy, spontaneous creativity into a polished, sanitized, and permanent monument to commercial success? I think that tension between the transient and the permanent is the real story of Harajuku today.